talking about paper. Absolute favorite paper to bind with is Mohawk Superfine paper. It's a text weight of 70. It's perfect for drawing. Most ink applications and print applications, it is acid free and archival, which means it will last quite a long time. This is just a signature that I have made up in a text block that's ready to go. This comes in, I order it in very large sheets. It's 23 by 35 inches, and then I cut it down myself for whatever size I want, and I see that that works better for me because I make all different size books. But this paper, again, my favorite. It's very affordable. I've gotten this on hollanders.com, and I do believe you can get it in other places. That's just where I get a majority of my bookbinding material. So you can also buy small packages. This came in a small package of papers. I think it came in like 25 or 50, and this is just a parchment paper that I really liked for drawing, and I believe it came in the like 8 by 10 size, and you can just cut it down to fit your needs. My point being, though, it doesn't have to be expensive paper. It can be inexpensive paper. Whatever you like will work. If you have a favorite paper, you can apply that to most bookbinding tutorials. Also, you will need, depending on the type of book you're making, if you're making a hardback book or a book with a hard cover that you want to cover with fabric or with decorative paper or with book cloth, you're going to need some kind of board. I personally prefer Davey Board. This is a quality bookbinding board you can get most any place on the internet or a fine art supply store. This particular board I got at hollanders.com. It is a 0.080 or 3/32. It comes in a large sheet again, 14 by 20 inches, or you can have it custom cut by them. If you live in the area, I believe they're in Ann Arbor, Michigan, you can pick up even larger sheets than the 14 by 20 is roughly what it is that it comes in. You will have to have something to cut this down. It is pretty thick. We're going to go over cutting materials after this, and I'll show you what I use with this. You can also buy something like this Grunge board by Holtz. This is a really fun, flexible board that works well with soft covers. For cutting, you're going to need a good quality pair of scissors that are dedicated to just your paper, and you may have to have them sharpened from time to time. This particular pair I've had for quite a few years now. The brand is Heritage. It's a strong, hefty pair of scissors, and it cuts very well. I do need to have them sharpened, but a good pair of scissors will, just about any sharp pair will work well. You also might need a utility knife, and this is what I use to cut the Davey board. Now, children, if you're watching this tutorial, any of these sharp items you do need to have an adult help you with. This is very sharp, but it is a very thick board, and you want something that's going to be sharp and precise to cut with. You're also going to need something to cut on. So you're going to need a cutting mat. I prefer the types with the grids and the measurements on there. That is a blessing for cutting book covers and anything you need to have an accurate size. This helps to have it on the bottom as a guideline. And it helps when you're using this to have something under it. If you don't, whatever you're cutting on will more than likely be ruined. There's also, for cutting paper, I buy the Mohawk Superfine in the large sheets, and I cut it down myself. And this is a paper knife. You can order them at most art supply stores. I got this at Hollanders. This is, I'm not sure of the brand. I think it might be Schmedt. I don't know if that's pronounced right, but that's what it says on the blade. It is a knife that was made in Germany, and it has a blunted steel edge designed for slitting paper and for leaving a very soft, deckled edge. You can see it's not very sharp. I'm sure it's sharp enough to do a little damage, so still be careful with these. But these work wonderfully and give you beautiful edges for soft, deckled pages. With any book, you're going to need some type of ruler. You can use any ruler you have laying around the house, or any type of ruler will work. I just prefer rulers that show you each measurement and you can see underneath. That helps when you're using the cutting mat with the guided lines. These are spring dividers. These are used for making quick, accurate measurements without a ruler. Say you have the spine of a book, you would place the point on one end and just divide up the amount of holes you would like to have, and you would find how many holes fit evenly in your length. These are very handy and they're adjustable. You can find these anywhere, Amazon.com, and they're rather inexpensive. A very handy, useful tool. Another handy, useful tool is going to be a square. This is just a metal square I picked up at the hardware store. This is going to help you when you're trying to get straight, even, accurate lines, and that is pretty important when you're making a book. It's not a end all, but it does help when everything lines up. So this is a very handy tool. Other miscellaneous tools you might use while bookbinding, a bookbinding awl or any type of awl. You can even buy regular, just a very small awl at the hardware store. This particular awl I did get from Hollanders. It is a bookbinding awl. Just do be careful. The end is extremely sharp. And this is what you would use to punch your holes in the signatures for sewing for your books. So this, again, children, if you're watching, this is a very sharp tool, so please be careful. Even adults, be careful. This is extremely sharp. And when I'm punching my signatures, I made up this little foam. It's just a bunch of foam sheets duct taped together. You can see there, tore off a little corner. Just a bunch of foam sheets, and you can lay your paper on top and push down. That way you're not damaging anything underneath what you're trying to punch a hole in, and you have something to kind of sink it in to go through the paper. Next, what you might want to invest in, and I say invest, but they're not extremely expensive depending on the type you get. If you're going to be working with leather or anything to that nature, you might want to spend a little bit more and get a Teflon bone folder, because if you use a bone folder like this that is made of bone, it's not going to move well on the leather. You will need like a Teflon folder. They're a little bit more expensive than these. I bought this particular one on Hollanders.com, and it is a sculpted bone folder that comes to a pointed edge. I believe it's a 6.5 inch, and it fits perfectly in my hand. A lot of the others I found were extremely long or a lot wider than was comfortable for me to use, and this fits perfectly in my hand. I can use the pointed edge for small details, or it's got a nice smooth rounded edge. You also want to either purchase some bookbinding needles. I prefer, the brand is called John James, and this is a bookbinding needle. They're extremely long, and you can tell there, hopefully that is catching that or picking that up. I'm not sure if it's going to focus on it because it's tiny. It's got a larger eye to accommodate the wax linen thread that most bookbinders used, and it is quite long to help you get through the signatures and come back and around. And they are strong, sturdy needles. You can order these in big packages of 25. You can buy these on Amazon, on most art supply stores. You could probably even buy them in most art supply stores. If you can't find these or can't afford to purchase these, they're not extremely expensive. But if you have an embroidery needle at home, which is similar to this, that will work well too. Just whatever you find. If you do have an embroidery needle, that will replace this if you can't get these. I personally love these. They don't bend. With embroidery needles, I find that I bend and warp them sewing with them. Maybe I'm just really rough on needles, but these don't bend. I've never had one bend or warp or anything to that nature. On the talk of needles, you're also going to need some sort of sewing thread. You can use I would not use sewing thread like for a sewing machine, thin thread. You're going to want thicker thread. This is a waxed linen thread, that I purchased from Hollanders, and you can tell when I hold it out, it is very stiff. It is very waxed. And that's what you want. The wax helps build up the strength of this thread, and it makes it a lot more manageable when you're trying to sew. It's not going to knot up as easy, and it's going to really hold up in whatever book you put that in. So you can see how thick that is. This is the brand that I purchased from Hollanders. It's Crawford threads. This is imported from Northern Ireland. You get 100 yards full of this 4-ply wax thread, and they have a very large variety of colors. So a lot of people use this in exposed bindings where you want that decorative edge, or I just personally, I buy big spools of the natural, and I use it for everything. Even on my closed signatures or my hardback books. I just love the strength of this thread. I know that it's not going to break. Personally, my favorite. You can also use, if you have embroidery thread, now I would purchase at least medium quality embroidery thread that's not going to fray out on you very easily. You can take embroidery thread, cut your length, and take beeswax. You can take an unscented candle. You could take the little wax disc you get for jewelry making, and what you're going to do is run that thread 4 or 5 passes through your wax, and that is going to give you a similar effect as a waxed linen thread without having waxed linen thread. So bookbinding is very doable at home with the items you do have. Bookbinding supplies that are particularly made for bookbinding can be expensive, so this can be an expensive hobby. Well worth it in my opinion. And you will also need some type of glue, depending on your application. There are like a pamphlet stitch that is just a soft cover. Say you did your own art print and you wanted to turn that into a book, just a soft cover pamphlet stitch. You could do that without any glue. And that might be something we do a tutorial on. But for the hardbacks and the pamphlet stitch where you want to make a custom cover out of like decorative paper, or if you want a fabric covered journal, you will need some type of adhesive, be it PVA or wheat paste or methyl cellulose. This I'm just going to go over today is PVA, which is a polyvinyl acetate. This is what you're going to want to use bookbinding. And I know a lot of people say, oh, well, why can't you just use Elmer's glue? This bookbinding, or this glue is specifically made so it's archival and acid-free. And when it dries quickly and it remains flexible. So it's not going to become brittle when it's dry, because if it were brittle when it was dry, it would just crumble and whatever book you make will fall apart. This is going to last, because it's archival, it's going to last for a long time. It's really going to improve the quality of your book. Now, this is very quick drying. When you're working with this, you need to have a plan. You need to know exactly what you're doing. You can add a little wheat paste or methyl cellulose to extend the drying time. You can order this on most art supply stores. This particular bottle I purchased on Amazon. This is not extremely expensive or inexpensive. It is medium, middle of the road. You are going to pay a little bit for it. I don't know why, but in my experience, it tends to be a little more expensive than some of the other supplies. On that note, I also have specific brushes just for glue. I did purchase these on Hollanders, and these are in their store as brushes for glue. It's made of natural hog hair, and it works extremely well for distributing the glue on whatever you're putting it onto, be it a fabric cover or paper. I love having these. You do need to make sure you wash them right away. It is glue. It is water soluble if you use the PVA. However, it's still glue. You don't want to ruin any of your brushes, and I treat these just like I would any of my art brushes for painting. These were rather inexpensive. I want to say under $3, maybe a couple bucks a piece. And again, on Hollanders, I love Hollanders. If you haven't noticed, I love the store. I've ordered my supplies from them. A majority of my supplies are from them. So if you're in Ann Arbor, Michigan, or looking for a good online store, they're a great place to purchase from. So this wraps up this portion of bookbinding tools and supplies. We may have other tools and supplies here and there, just depending on what type of bind we're doing. This is a basic middle of the road stuff you might use. You may not use all of it for some binds, but this is stuff you would use for a basic bind. And hopefully here soon I will get up some more tutorials on how to start those in this bookbinding series. On bookbinding as well in the YouTube community. You can look on YouTube. There are a ton of bookbinders on YouTube that have great information. I personally have 3 that I come back to time and time again, and I will put their links below. You can check them out. They have very helpful information. Sage Reynolds being the first. He is absolutely wonderful. Clear instructions and beautiful work. The other is my friend Lee at Crafty Loops. I absolutely love Lee. She is such a fun, bubbly personality, and her bookbinding tutorials are amazing. When I was first starting out, she really helped me. Also, you can try Jennifer at Sea Lemon. She has some really wonderful tips, tricks, and bind tutorials as well. Alright, well that about wraps it up. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, subscribe, give us a like, and join us again. Thank you.